can go back. And I appreciate you all tuning in and appreciate Tim taking the time. It doesn't sound like um, there's a lot of downtime in the engineering office, so all the more reason that we appreciate his time. And I'll just let Tim take over, share a little bit about yourself, about what you do with the city, and then I'm sure that we'll have questions for a little while.
Sure. So yeah, I thought I'd just start a little bit about my background and how I got to this place, and then kind of how public works is structured, how engineering fits within that, and then we can talk about what engineering does and what our office has been up to and all that kind of stuff. So again, my name is Tim Logue. I'm the director of engineering. I've been working with the city for about 21 years now. I came to Ithaca to do a graduate program in city and regional planning at Cornell. I moved around quite a bit when I was young, so I've lived in Virginia and New Jersey and Iowa and Vermont and New York and a little stint out in Oregon, so I've kind of moved around quite a bit. My undergraduate degree is in philosophy, nothing related to city planning or engineering or public works at all, but that's what I was really interested in college, and I figured I'd figure out the work thing later on, so I wasn't too worried about that at the time. So anyway, I came for school. My wife's a high school English teacher. Rebecca Gergley is her name. And yeah, Leslie, you know my wife. There you go.
And your daughter,
What's that?
your daughter is one of my granddaughter's best friends.
Oh, Hannah?
Yeah.
Ah, very good. Who's your granddaughter?
Carolyn Verrett.
Huh, okay.
I met your wife at Carolyn's birthday party last year.
Yeah.
Birthday party.
Yeah, sure, of course. Fantastic. Yeah, nice to see you again. So, at the time, Becca got a job at the high school and I got a job with the city. I had just done my city and regional planning program, so I was a planner at the time. And so I first got hired in a planning department and I worked there for about 5 years. I started doing a fair amount of transportation planning related work. And so when the traffic engineer, who's Dan Cole at the time, retired or moved to Virginia, they came and approached me and asked if I was interested in getting turned in to be an engineer. And I said, yeah, it's a pay raise. That sounds pretty good to me. So they said, great, we're going to send you back up the hill, take a couple classes, which the city has a good benefits program. So they help pay for all that. And they made me into an engineer. So I was the city's transportation engineer for about 10 years, from 2005 to 2015. And as part of that, I get to do all sorts of things. I used to joke with people that the transportation engineer's job is everything from where should this one specific parking sign go to what's the future of transportation in Ithaca 20 years from now. And it literally is everything in between. It's project management. I get to build the waterfront trail. It's dealing with requests and complaints for their speeding traffic on my block, or we worked on transforming our city sidewalk program. If you remember, the old program used to be everybody was in charge of the sidewalk in front of their house, including concrete repairs and everything. And we've changed that. So now you're just in charge of snow and ice, and the city will take care of concrete and construction work over time. Lots of different things I got to do. And then in 2015, Tom West, who was the former director of engineering, he retired. And I was lucky enough to get the promotion. And so now I run the engineering division. So our division is one of 4 within Public Works. There's also the Streets and Facilities division. They're in charge of snow plowing this time of year, and parks and street paving and the forestry program, and managing and maintaining the city's fleet of vehicles, and storm sewer repairs and all sorts of good stuff is down at Streets and Facilities. All of our building services for the city-owned buildings, or for most of them. We have a water and sewer division, right, that does all the water and potable water, drinking water, and the sanitary sewer system. As Francine mentioned, I think it was Francine, right? We had a water main break today over by Pete's. I still call it Pete's, but I know it's not Pete's anymore. Over in the West End, it sounds like that took out water for a good portion of Inlet Island, and had some disruptions in services and quality of water for a lot of people all over the city. But they manage almost the entire water and sewer system, including the water plant and cleaning the water out of 6 Mile Creek, all the pipes that bring it all to our houses and buildings, and then also the pipes that take it all away after you flush it down the sink or the toilet or the shower, and the wastewater plant down by the farmers market. So they're kind of in charge of that whole operation. And then our fourth division is transportation and parking division. So it used to be a long time ago, like over 10 years ago, not that long ago, but we used to not have a parking director or a parking division at all. And our parking garages and the on-street parking and the various city lots that the city owns were kind of managed by Public Works, but also the planning department was involved, and the controller's office and the chamberlain's office. So a number of years ago, we decided to create a parking director position to be in charge of all the parking. And we've had a couple parking directors over that time, but more recently, we changed that title to be a director of parking and transportation. And so we've taken some of the transportation responsibilities out of the engineering office and put them into the parking and transportation division. So that director, his name's Eric Hathaway, and we've hired a transportation engineer named Aaron Cudahy. So a lot of the like requesting complaints, the big picture transportation planning, requests for traffic calming, things related to new development and site plan review and traffic impacts would really go to Eric and Aaron. And then at some point they get to a certain decision-making point and they need it to be then engineered or detailed or maybe taken into construction, and they would hand it back to me and we'd kind of finish the job, so to speak. So we've kind of split up the transportation responsibilities a little bit that used to be more squarely in the engineering division and put them over in transportation and engineering, or transportation and parking. The truth is, you know, we still work together. We're in the same office. We talk to each other all the same time because I have a history of being the transportation engineer, and Eric was then a little bit after me for a couple of years until he got his promotion and we hired Aaron. The three of us are all kind of familiar with that work, so we do a lot of transportation work together. The engineering division, the one that I run, has 5 engineers and 1 seasonal person right now. And we just advertised for a 6th engineer. So we have a civil engineer position open right now. If anybody knows an engineer looking for work, send them my way. I'm very interested. I'm having a hard time hiring these days. So definitely would love to get some applications. We kind of, our responsibilities break down into kind of 3 main areas, I guess I'd say. The biggest one is we manage the capital program for the city. So every year the city adopts a budget. There's a lot of operating budgets of the different departments and staffing, but there are a certain number of larger projects that we borrow money for, and those projects are often managed by the engineering division. So we get big street construction projects, we get park improvements like the Stewart Park Playground. We just put out to bid the Cass Park rink enclosure, which is a project we've been working on for years. We're advertising College Avenue reconstruction, 3 blocks of street reconstruction and sidewalks up there. Kind of any larger projects, bridges, trails, major part or building expansions, like actually GIAC has the new gym next door, the old Immaculate Conception gym. Working with Leslin and Travis on a plan to expand that. We're going to move the east wall and the south wall out a little bit, renovate the gym space, get some offices and some program space in there for the, I think the recording studio program and the printing programs, or like a t-shirt printing, I think is what it is. And then some office space on the south side. So, you know, that'll be a multi-million-dollar project. We're working with architects and engineers on all the plans, navigating building code issues and fire code issues and all that good stuff. And once we get that project to a place where we're ready to advertise it, by state law, we have to put things out to bid and have contractors bid on these projects. We can't just hire our sons or brothers or, or buddies, you know, to build buildings or projects. So we have to put that out for open public bidding, and we get to do that. So as part of that capital program, we manage a lot of state and federal aid, particularly for our bridges and some of our trail projects. We get a lot of particularly federal aid for those things. Often the city will only pay 5% of the cost of a project. So like we built that brand new Brindley Street Bridge over in the West End 2 years ago. And the city paid about, we funded the engineering cost for that one, but for construction, we only paid 5% of a over $3 million project in order to build a brand new bridge. So it's a really lucrative program for the city. We're able to tackle larger projects that we just otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. As you can imagine, though, if you work with state and federal money, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and there's a lot of paperwork, and there's a lot of coordination and approvals with all the different state and federal agencies, the DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers and everybody else like that. So it's a lot of extra work, but it's well worth it for the city. So this capital program is something we manage. It's a big piece of what we do in engineering. A second large piece of what we do in our office is we manage the city's street permit program. So we have to issue street permits to anybody who wants to be in our street right of way, which is generally the sidewalks all the way into the middle of the street, for anybody that wants to dig in the street or anybody that wants to occupy that space. So we don't get a lot of people that want to dig in the street. Generally, it would be things like a monitoring well, like the old Marcos Flats project. They have a bunch of monitoring wells all over the neighborhood. They had to get a permit from us to put something in the street. If you wanted to go fix your own sidewalk because you're going to tear that up and replace it yourself, you need a permit from us to do that work. Not too many people volunteer to pave our streets for us. That would be the other reason that you'd have to get a permit from us. Most of the permits that we issue are for building projects that want to have part of their staging space in the street. So more and more our planning department wants buildings to be built out to the sidewalk, not set way back from the street. And that's generally a good planning and design program, but it often means in order to build your building, it's really hard to do it all from your property. You can, in some places it's easier than others, but in a lot of places you want to close a sidewalk, or you need the parking lane, or maybe you need to close a full travel lane, or even the whole street for some reason. All of that work gets coordinated through our office for a permit to allow that to happen. And as you can imagine, with all the construction downtown, all the work up in College Town over the last 5 or 10 years, we've been really, really busy with that. So we try to coordinate as those projects first are introduced to the city and they go through a site plan review process for approvals at the planning level. But once they get to construction, we're really quite busy with that. And then we also then field complaints of, oh, the contractor closed the sidewalk. Did they really have permission for that? No, they come to us to find out whether we really permitted that or not. And then we have the power to kind of push them around. So one that might be on your radar is the old library site downtown has been driving everybody crazy because they've been closed and not doing any construction work for the last year. I think it's been at least almost a solid year of shutdown. And just before they shut down construction, yeah, they probably started even before that. You're right, Leslie. But for a while, they were actually doing something, and they had a walkway on Cayuga Street, and Court Street was closed. And then they stopped working altogether, and they kept paying. We have this like ability for them to close the sidewalk, and they keep paying us on a monthly basis for the right to do that. So they've continued to pay their bills, but they haven't done anything. And most people have been saying, why can't you just get the sidewalk open or restore the sidewalk? So we just them specifically just gave them a deadline of today, to open the sidewalk on Cayuga Street, or else basically we'll start finding them. And then ultimately we have the police power to do it ourselves if we really had to and charge them for it. And we got I think probably the third time, no, don't make us do it. We're just about ready to start construction. So we made them give us a construction schedule, and we ran it past our building division. It seemed realistic. And supposedly they're going to be out there loading material in tomorrow on Cayuga Street and getting back to work. Otherwise, we're going to start finding them. And it's only $250 a day, which in the scheme of a multi-million-dollar project is not a huge penalty, but that's what's in the city code. But those kind of things that you can imagine, there's neighborhood requests and complaints. There's the annoyance of what it is. We're checking on the construction sites. We're trying to stay in touch with contractors. In this case, they had actually one contractor at the start of the project, and then they switched to a whole new contractor. So we kind of reissued the permit and had a whole new set of terms for them. That ends up taking a lot of our time. And we have one person who's basically dedicated to the street permit program entirely. And then the third piece of what we do is kind of more administrative and records management. We are kind of the keeper of a lot of older drawings on behalf of the city. So in the basement, I've got blueprints that are over 100 years old of bridges and buildings and park improvements and all sorts of stuff. Every once in a while, we get a request to go try to dig one of those out and find them and be in charge of that. We have some other engineering and surveying related things. We have monuments around the city that have elevations and benchmarks set. So we kind of are the keeper of that data. We have record drawings when a construction project is finished, and we have kind of the as-built or the finished set of drawings. We keep those so that we have those future records. We get to assign street addresses for buildings in the city, stuff like that. We just have a handful of other kind of administrative things that we do related there. So the vast majority of it is projects. For years, we've been pretty much a project management division. So we would hire almost exclusively all of our design work out of house. So whether that's hiring an engineer to design a bridge, or hiring an engineering company to design a street reconstruction, or hiring an architect and engineers for mechanical and electrical and plumbing for a building improvement project, and then hiring contractors. We would mostly do all of that work, was managing other people's work. In the last couple of years, we've started to try to make a move back to doing some work in-house, some design work in-house. So we're a big one we tackled right from the beginning was the College Avenue reconstruction. So from Mitchell Street up to Dryden Road in the heart of College Town, we're designing that street entirely in-house with ourselves, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of details. There's a lot of fine elevation and grading work that goes into that, and getting the storm pipes to design to fit in with all the other utilities and things of that nature. So it takes up a lot of staff time, but I think it's a good skill for us to be building on, so it's not kind of a lost skill within our office. We're small. We're not probably going to do major projects too often. We're probably not going to take on larger structural projects. If we're building a bridge, we're probably going to hire somebody to design the bridge, if it's of any scale. And so, but it's good to kind of move back in that direction. So pretty excited about that. And I can just give you a couple examples of other kind of major projects that we're working on, and then I'm happy to take questions. I mean, you guys can interrupt me at any point, but the other piece I'd like to point out before kind of a list of projects is we also run the city sidewalk program now. So as you might know, we broke the city up into 5 different districts. Everybody within those districts pays a certain amount into a sidewalk fund. Most single family properties pay, I think it's still $70 a year, if I remember correctly. And then a non-single family house, apartment buildings or commercial buildings, there's a formula that dictates how much they pay. And those properties would pay anywhere between hundreds of dollars a year to thousands of dollars a year. I think some of the more expensive ones are $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a year into the sidewalk program. And that gives us just under $1 million to run an annual sidewalk construction program. So we mostly focus on repairing sidewalks. And every year we put out a contract of about almost $600,000 a year to do sidewalk repairs. But it also gives us the ability to plan for building brand new sidewalks. So we did a huge one a couple years ago up Hector Street, where we built a sidewalk all the way up to and past the city line to connect to Linderman Creek Apartments. That was a $2 million project. It was massive. We have a smaller one on the east side of the city where we're going to extend a sidewalk from the Wildflower Preserve on Giles Street up to State Street, because there's no sidewalks in that area. Right now, we're working a lot in the Cecil A. Malone Drive and Cherry Street area. That kind of industrial area is starting to see more and more development, and there are no sidewalks in that neighborhood at all. So we're really planning for sidewalks down in that area. But having this annual program of $1 million almost every year allows us to really have a multi-year planning effort. It's not just what projects get approved this year, next year. We can really plan out what do we want to do every year. And I'm really happy with this program. It's totally different than the old one where somebody would have a sidewalk issue. We'd have to go out and inspect it. We'd send you a letter and say your sidewalk's broken, you have to fix it. Most property owners had no interest in spending thousands of dollars to fix their sidewalk, understandably. But if for some reason our code was written to say the sidewalk in front of your house mostly benefits you, and so it's your responsibility to maintain it, even if it costs $3,000 to fix your sidewalk. And I think we all realize the sidewalk in front of your house doesn't just benefit you, it benefits all of us as we walk around. And it really makes more sense to put all of our money into a pot and allow us to go out and fix things. So it's great because it gives us the ability to address accessibility issues, ADA issues, particularly sidewalks at the curb ramps at the corners. There's certain design rules that we have to follow to make those compliant. We have to, make sure the squares of sidewalk aren't at a level, so there's a huge bump in the sidewalk. Sidewalks can't be too pitchy one way or the other. They should be just a tiny bit of pitch so the rainwater doesn't pool on there. But that gives us the ability to try to go out and fix things. Now, we don't have enough money to fix everything, so we have to figure out how to plan for that over time. But that program really gives us the ability to put something on a program, get a complaint, and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that this year, but I'll put it in the program for next year. Or if it's a larger one, we might have to save up a couple of years for. But the sidewalk programs run out of the engineering division. It's a really great program for the city. It's one of my favorites, actually. And I don't know, big projects we get to do. I mentioned a handful of them there. We did the My Road paving project. We have a couple signals to build out there this year to finish that one up. I had a huge multi-million-dollar project to build a wall under East State Street, just past where the old History Center used to be. That was like almost a $4 million project, but there was this old, over 100-year stacked stone, was a dry stacked stone wall that held up East State Street. No mortar, no nothing in it. And we only had one repair drawing for it that was over 100 years old. We didn't have any original construction drawings, but the wall was starting to bow and bend a little bit, and there were big cracks in it. And that was one that the city ended up paying 5% for on I think almost a $4 million total project cost. And now we can feel comfortable that State Street won't fall down into the parking lot down below. So we get stuff like that. Traffic signals, the trail program, something that's very interesting to me. I get to build the waterfront trail, and that got me really interested in the future of trails through the city and out of the city. So right now we have a grant application in, well, I guess I'll rewind a little bit. From the waterfront trail, if you go south along the flood control channel, it goes under the West End bridges and it runs out kind of parallel to Floral Avenue, and then it kind of just turns around. There's a little dead end down there by the apartments. We have a project right now that's funded to build a bridge across the flood control channel. We're hoping to get that out to bid right now. It makes a direct connection from West Hill down to Wegmans and Nate's Floral Estates, or vice versa from anybody in the south side. It gives you a better way to get on the waterfront trail, because Cecil Malone's a little bit of a quieter street than trying to navigate the West End. But I just put a grant application in this fall to then go from that point down all the way to Buttermilk Falls to extend the trail all the way down there. And from Buttermilk Falls, the kind of regional long-range plan is to extend a trail out to Robert H. Treeman Park along Route 13, kind of parallel to Route 13 out in the woods back there. It goes back towards Lick Brook and then connects to the state park. And in the opposite direction, the town has opened that short segment from the infamous Bridge to Nowhere by Buttermilk Falls up South Hill to Stone Quarry Road. And that's where it stops right now. But we just got the easement from the old Emerson power transmission site to get the trail to extend through there, as they're thinking about that Chainworks development project. I don't know if you heard about that. With the idea that eventually we'd like that to connect to the South Hill Recway. So you could go from way out in South Hill Recway, anybody that lives out that way, you could go all the way to the farmer's market on your bike and barely have to cross the street anywhere along there. Or if you live downtown and you want to get to Buttermilk Falls, you can kind of do that on Spencer Road. It's a little bit sketchy back in there sometimes, but this would give you like a direct trail connection all the way to Buttermilk Falls. So that kind of regional trail system gets me really excited. I think it's both awesome for us as residents for just exercise and getting around. It's certainly huge the draw for tourism. More and more places love the idea that you'd come visit Ithaca for 3 days and you go for a long bike ride. You'd be able to ride with a Black Diamond Trail. You could go all the way up to Taganic Falls, come all the way down in the city, go out to Buttermilk or Treeman, ride up South Hill, go all the way up to Burns Road. It ends up being like 30 miles of trail all connected, something like that. It's pretty neat. So, all right, that's enough of me talking. There must be some questions or projects or something specific you want to talk about. I'm more than happy to see where you want to go.
Well, congratulations, especially on the trail work. I love the trails. And I'm sure this is an exciting time for you with all of the construction that's going on. So I have some questions about construction, and if you're not the right person, please, if you can let me know who to talk to. I live on Washington Street. I'm close to Washington Park. And of course, with all the new construction, and there is a lot. I've lived here for, I don't know, maybe 20 years. I mean, I've stopped counting, but I've lived on this street in this house for a long time. Since the construction, I hear booms and noises. My house shakes in the middle of the night. I've asked a couple of neighbors, do you hear this? Really, I mean, it's different. At one time I could hear the train when it would run through, but that's it.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out, what could this be? I'm in the same block with CFCU.
Yeah.
And as you know, there's a lot of construction, which I think is exciting, but I'm concerned about what could be happening to my house.
Sure.
And my house is 130 years old. It's in pretty good condition, but I do sometimes it shakes, and almost daily, and during the day, but I hear it even early in the morning, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, late at night, noise. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what are there people in the city that are regulating traffic, for one? I mean, maybe these are big trucks rolling through, but I can't imagine it's so much more than what it was before.
Yeah. I can't imagine too much of the building construction would be making noise at night, because most of them are limited in their hours of construction. I don't remember off the top of my head, 7:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening or something like that. You don't get too many projects that are making noise in the middle of the night. The thing in the middle of the night, I live on West Hill, just up the street from LACS. And there have been nights when I've heard a loud noise. It almost sounded like a gunshot, that I was like, what is going on? And then over time, I've come to think more and more, or I thought it was like some activity down like by the old Weitzman Steel building on Cherry Street, where that old recycling center was. Like there's some crashing sound, like it sounded like somebody dropped a dumpster from the second story. I've come to think more and more that some of those loud noises at night are tractor trailers driving on Route 13 and hitting the manholes and lids that are out there. Sometimes they're sunk by like an inch or two. They come through, and I just imagine it going crunk, 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 crunk. So that's my little pet theory currently. There's probably not much that's going to happen on that front in the next year, but the state does have a project funded to repave the entire section of Route 13 that they own, which is almost all of it in the city.
Oh, hallelujah.
I know, right? Not this year and not next year. I think it's 2024.
Okay, well, it's the noise level has definitely increased, and I'm a pretty sound sleeper, so I'm concerned. The other thing is, I'd like to know, who should I contact about the age of my water pipes?
Oh yeah, sure.
Outside of the house, because I've received several letters from a company called HomeServe urging me to get some kind of protection in case my water pipes burst. Now, these are the pipes, I think, from the sidewalk that come into my house. And I don't know why I should be paying for this, but of course I'm worried.
Right.
When I think about everything that's going on in the neighborhood, all the construction, and could, again, the construction be disturbing somehow?
I wouldn't worry too much about construction breaking underground pipes. Generally, most of your water pipes are going to be generally 4 feet below the ground, because you don't want them in the frost area. You can definitely call down to our water and sewer division, and I'm happy to give you their phone number and see what record information they have on that piping system. So their number, if you got a pencil handy, is 272-1717.
Okay, who should I speak to? Is there a particular
You're just going to get a general person at the front desk, and you can say, I'm calling from this address, and I'm interested in what you know about my water and sewer services.
Okay.
The general idea is the city takes responsibility for the water main and the sewer main in the street. And then we kind of own the connection or the lateral to about the curb or the sidewalk area. And then generally the rule of thumb is that property owners own the rest of it to the house.
From the sidewalk to my house.
It's generally going to be yours to own. Now, there's one caveat on that, which is if that pipe is an old pipe and it's not a copper pipe, which is the preferred metal for plumbing, if it's an old lead pipe, the city might replace it at the city's cost. And then once it's copper, they're going to turn it over you to own. But you can ask them and double check on that. They should know how big it is, how old it is, what material it is, and see if you can figure that out. They can also probably give you some advice about this offer you've got from some other company, you know, to why you should you look for some sort of insurance. What was it, an insurance company or something? What did they want to sell you?
I don't know what they are. I mean, I
Yeah.
tried to Google them, but
Okay.
they've sent me several letters. And in addition, Duxon Wynn, our council person, recently sent something about the flooding area has changed. And where I live now, near I'm about 2 blocks from the inlet, is that it's a 1% chance of flooding. You know, again, we need to get flood insurance, and one person who owns a lot of properties in the area said that'll be $7,000 a year. I mean, it was just astronomical. So, and the reason that this company gives for us to buy this protection is they say the ground is shifting. And that's what made me think of the construction again. Like, why would the ground be shifting so much more than it has before?
Right. I'd be suspicious they're trying to sell you something.
Can I interrupt there for a second?
Yes.
I also received that same letter that Francine got, and I received it twice. It comes out of someplace in Binghamton, and they want to sell you insurance for your pipes, for your water pipes.
Right.
And when I went in to pay my property taxes last month, I asked there and they said it was a scam.
Thank you, Nicolita.
That's what I assumed too. I got the same thing. I think it's a scam too, or at least it's if it's not an outright scam, I mean, maybe they'll actually, you know, give you insurance or whatever. It seems like they were just fishing.
Yeah, originally
Thank
they said that it would cost me around $8. And then the second letter was giving me a discount where they said it would only cost me around $3. So I said, that sounds like a scam. And I went and asked.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
There another question? Go ahead, Joanne.
First of all, thank you for that tremendous sort of macro view. Although it was a lot of information to take up, but I really learned a lot from that. My question is sort of macro and micro, and that is the appalling state of the streets in Ithaca. In fact, I have to laugh because Zach, I remember we were on some sort of a trip a while ago and we went down Center Street and you said it was the worst street in town. And right now between Plain and Albany, it's the best and probably the only really good street in town because they did months and months and months of construction work and they actually paved the whole street. So here's my question. I'm on South Titus and there's been construction work in South Titus. I've been here for 16 years, I think, off and on for many years. And last year it was NYSEG or whoever who was the people they hired to come and put in new, gas pipes.
Right.
And the guys were actually great. They redid part of my sidewalk. They did a beautiful job. But as has happened every time construction has been done on my block, when it's done, they patch the street.
Yeah.
Now we've got a hole about 15 feet from my driveway, which is about 8 inches deep.
Ooh.
It's not a big hole, but I've gone through it once and I thought, oh, I hope my axles are still alive. And outside of my driveway, there are all kinds of chunks of asphalt that are missing.
Okay.
I'm almost happy for the ice to be there because it fills them in. It makes it easier to go in the driveway. What is the plan for the streets? I mean, I heard a guy who was doing construction on the corner of my street and Plain a few years back. I stopped them and I was asking them just what they were doing and all this stuff. And And the guy had come from out of state. And he said to me, I've worked all over the United States. He said, I've never seen such bad streets in any city this size.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really appalling. What's going to happen with this? And what's
sure. That's a good question. I think there's a bunch of things going on in there. So at the very small level, if you have potholes that need to be filled, you can call down to our streets and facilities. They have a pothole list and they will come and fill things.
Probably 1,000 numbers, right?
It is long, but that's 272-1718.
And
Not
that's
to be,
streets
not
and
to be,
facility?
that's our streets and facilities division. Yep.
They asked for that. Okay.
And you can just, whoever picks up the phone, it's probably Jean McCullough, will just say, I'd like to report a pothole. And she'll say, great, where's the address? Or can you describe its location for me? And you'll be surprised, but the crews actually will come out and fill that pothole fairly quickly. Now, in the
Whoa.
winter, they'll fill it with a material that won't last very long because they can't get hot asphalt very easily. So it'll only probably patch it for the winter, and they may have to come and do a bigger patch in the spring or summer. But that's at least one thing you can do in the short term, and it actually gets done. The bigger picture about paving our streets is a very complicated financial picture. So for years, the city was decreasing our staffing in public works. We were cutting people as we tried to tighten belts for the budget every year. And whether it was through retirements or attrition of some other kind, we were not rehiring our crews. And so slowly but steadily, we got our paving crew to be in a place where all it could do was react to massive failures or follow water and sewer around as they put in new water and sewer pipes, and then our crews would come follow them. So that's one of the reasons that Center Street got paved, was because we went and replaced the water main down there. Great, that's good. We hate to pave a street over 100-year-old pipe only to have it break the year after we just fixed it. We did that outside of GIAC not that long ago. We repaved a portion of Albany Street. We replaced the water main in 3 blocks, but we didn't do it in the 4th block. No sooner than within a year after we paved that 4th block, we had a water main break. They had to come patch a hole in it. Hate doing that. So it's best if we can take care of the utilities underneath it and then pave the street. But before COVID, our superintendent, his name's Mike Thorne, was working with Common Council to try to increase the funding to streets and facilities so we could get a second paving crew on board. One that could deal with utility patches or a sinkhole or be kind of a reactive kind of crew, but one that could be proactive and actually have a plan every year of what streets we're going to pave and try to put together a program for that. Unfortunately, COVID undid most of the work that we were working in that direction for. And not only did we have to then cut budget during COVID, but since then, we have not been able to rehire a lot of those positions, in part because the budget's only partially getting restored, but also in part because people aren't applying for jobs right now. We're desperate for people to come work for Public Works. We must have a dozen open positions right now, and we're just not getting applicants. So if we don't have people, we're certainly not going to be able to pave the streets. I think probably Public Works's overall goal right now, we really wanted to start getting ahead of street paving and try to get a little bit better every year. We have 65 some odd miles of street that we have to maintain. If that lasts 20 years, we should be doing almost 3 miles of street every year just to keep up. Well, I think at this point we realize we're just trying to decrease the rate of decline. We're really not able to keep up with our street paving needs. And larger projects, like we just paved Elmira Road, the section that we own of Route 13 out by the recycling center and the Honda dealership and all that kind of stuff. There's no way that our street crews, our own public works forces, would be able to do a project at that scale. It's a $2 million paving project that we were able to put out to bid, in large part because we get federal and state aid to do that. So we're using that money the best we can to take on these larger projects. Our crews are kind of limited to smaller projects. They're going to do a Center Street where they can do 2 or maybe 3 blocks of a residential street. They might get the South Titus. I don't know if that one's on the list, but you can certainly call and ask to have it put on the list. Can you please make sure this block of South Titus or 2 blocks are on the paving list? Sometimes our paving program is driven by utilities. So we're going to wait. If NYSEG's got gas mains to replace, we're going to wait till they finish before we come back and pave the street, right? There's no sense in paving it and have them come cut into it the year after, 2 years later. And same with water and sewer. If we know that they're interested in replacing those pipes, we're probably going to wait on that. So it's a really tough problem to really address, because you know, we have to get around to all parts of the city. We can't just focus on one part of the city, and it's hard for our crews to do really big jobs, so they're kind of limited to smaller projects right now. So I
So
don't know.
does the condition or the flow of traffic affect which decisions are made? Because this is such a little street.
Right.
And yet, because it goes right into the main drive into Wegmans, we've
Right.
got big trucks, we've got little trucks, we've got gazillion cars,
Sure.
we've got fire trucks, we've got everything on this street. And,
Right.
and so when it's in bad shape, man, talk about houses shaking. Boy, I hear
Right.
you, Francine, you know?
It kind of does. Sometimes we would prioritize streets that carry more traffic, because obviously they carry more traffic, so we'd like to keep their condition a little bit better. On the other hand, sometimes those are really hard streets to work on, like East State Street on East Hill is horrible. If you've driven up that recently, you thought it was going to break your spine. It's so bad through there. But the city, we would not be able to handle a project like that. It's just too big for us and way too much traffic. Managing that amount of traffic was a nightmare. So that one's, we have federal and state aid. We're working on that one. We're hoping to get that to construction next year, although currently the funding is in 2024. But again, that's like a $2 million project, and those funds are not available just straight out of the city budget. We're really reliant on state and federal aid to do those larger projects. So you can always call it in, you can report it and say, please, can you put South Titus on the list, or come look at it? And that might help bump it up a little bit. But there are a lot of factors on, traffic and utilities and where else we are, what the traffic impacts might be. You know, we might not do, maybe that's a good time to do it. We'll be back to do part of that South Cayuga Street Bridge in the spring here. We got most of it done.
Yeah, I was
and
going
they
to
opened
ask
it up.
about that. How was that financed? That was done surprisingly fast.
Yeah, that's a
by
state
what
and
I
federal,
could
that's a
see.
federal aid project. So we hired a company to do that. Yep, that's not our city crews, way bigger than what we're able to take on ourselves. So, yeah. So, and they do have some finish work to do this spring. So it's open for a little while. They'll probably be back in April once it gets nicer, I guess.
So there's sections of city streets that the state owns. You said that part of Meadow Street are 13, but then you just said that the part out by Honda and stuff is the city.
Yes.
Is,
I would
and
need to
like
give you a
79.
map to really describe it. It's super complicated, actually. So for Route 13, the city owns the Elmira Road portion of it, from about Old Elmira Road to the South City line, but the state owns the rest of Route 13. The state owns Green and Seneca Street through the downtown over to the tuning fork, but we own it on East Hill and we own it on West Hill. And the West End is a mix that I'm not even going to bother telling you about, because I'd have to go block by block, and it's a little bit crazy. It's a little complicated, yeah. But just because it has a state number on it, like Clinton Street is 96B, the city owns Clinton Street exclusively. So they have what they call touring routes that kind of connect state numbered routes through the city. Sometimes we own them, sometimes DOT owns them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Convoluted.
Like that.
I hope you're enjoying your job and don't go anywhere, because it sounds very complicated.
I love my job. I actually really like it. I have great people to work with, and we get to do all sorts of fun stuff with big construction toys and demolishing things and building things. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of paperwork and drives me
Little
crazy.
boy's dream, huh? Little boy's
It
dream.
is a little bit, yeah, yeah.
I have two questions, and
Sure.
you might be able to direct me or something. Number one is that I am interested in building a carport in my driveway, and do I need a permit for that?
Good question. The general answer to building stuff is I don't know, because I don't do that. So you have to ask our building division, which is on the 4th floor. That's why I'm pointing up.
Okay.
Their general response is yes, you need a building permit for almost everything. You want to replace the windows in your house, you need a building permit. So my guess is for a carport, absolutely.
And the other thing is, okay, this is a tricky one, because I know that you won't be able to answer this, but I need you to know what's happening, okay?
Okay.
Well, whenever we need to make a repair to the house, and if it's a major repair, and you know, either if it's a handyman or any other person, the wages. I mean, I am all for paying fair wages, but the wages are outrageous sometimes for simple repairs.
Mhm.
And is there something that could be done? I mean, when I used to work and they would give me a bill and they say, oh, this is like $100 an hour. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't even earn $100 an hour. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So is there any place or anyone that kind of like looks at this? You know, because we need a little bit of protection. I mean, like I said, I'm all for paying a fair wage, but I don't want you to take advantage of me.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. That goes way beyond what I do for work because all of my stuff is public work. So it's only stuff related to streets or parks or the things that the city owns. And the state law is that when we put a project out to bid and hire a contractor, we have to pay what they call a prevailing wage. It kind of matches union shop wages, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a union shop. And people, when you get paid prevailing wage, you're guaranteed probably something $25 or $30 an hour plus benefits on top of that. So it's very common. I pay a carpenter like $50 an hour.
More, much
Right.
more.
Right.
Michelina and my other folks here on this, we should share information. That's what I would say about good contractors, because thanks to our last president, people in construction, and I'm not against it. I'm all for people that work in the trades. I really am. My dad did, and he didn't get a good deal at that time. But the going rates for people now, unbelievable. It's outrageous. And what's interesting is that new people that are moving into our neighborhoods, they're paying so much money. It can be good, but it's also it's crazy. I'll give you one example. I'm not going to cite any addresses, all right? But there's a house on Cascadilla, and it was a garage. It's now a 2-bedroom apartment or a house. So I asked the people who built that, I said, if I want to convert my garage into just, something where I can workshop, how much would it cost for me to do something like that? Guess how much they said?
$100,000.
$275,000
Wow.
from that garage. It's in our neighborhood, okay? And I know one of the young men who's working, I think he tried to pull me to the side and say, just leave the garage the way that it is. From a garage to a living unit, people are making money hand over fist, as my mom used to say, downtown. And I'm not against some of it, but it's just for you and me and just ordinary retirees. The cost of everything, electricians, you're paying, I think last year the going rate is $175 an hour. And there are people that are doing some good work, but I think that we just have to share with each other when you get somebody good, and not so much try to underpay them, right? But pay them a living wage, because these folks, a lot of them have to pay for their own health insurance. I mean, I know a guy who's a contractor, I can't get him. He gives me a decent rate, but he also knows that the lady across the street is going to pay him 10 times more. So even though he likes me as nice Francine, why should he come and do a job for me when he can get a lot more money from some of these other folks? It's very frustrating. I understand it, but I don't think there's anything the city can do. I really.
Yeah, let me jump in here. I mean, it's a really good idea for us to share information among ourselves, particularly about something like a handyman. It's people that can provide that kind of work at a reasonable rate. But I think we're going a little bit outside of Tim's control, and he's probably knowledgeable on on all types of construction, but maybe not labor law and whatnot. Do we have any final questions for Tim so we can let him get back to his busy schedule?
I just have a quick comment that I have walked from Stewart Park to Buttermilk Falls, and I think it is going to be fantastic when you get that new route in there, because where it dead ends is just grim. Also, with Sue Cosentini's big development going in there, that's going to put a lot more people on that street and have a lot more use for any sidewalk that you can indeed put in. So I think that will be really, really tremendous.
Yeah, we got a letter of support from her because we'll almost have a direct connection to her development down there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I really thank you for this presentation. You were amazingly complete, and you answered some of the questions that I have asked some of your colleagues as they have shown up for meetings, particularly about that Travis Hyde project, which has been a thorn in most people's sides.
No doubt.
And so we really, really appreciate the fact that you're starting to put thumbs on them.
Absolutely. I want to second that. I think it's very exciting. You know, you're an engineer and you've given us a good idea about a lot of things. My only thing is to, you know, there are more people. The idea is to attract more people and so forth, and more people are coming into the city. How are you working with the planning department on getting trash cans, police protection? I mean, we had this talk before with someone else from the city. It's nice to have more construction and more money and revenue to come into the city and more people, but just to be able to support the growth. And Lord knows Ithaca needs more folks to be paying tax, right? Hopefully to bring down the tax for everyone else, but to be able to support that. I am concerned about the noise. I'm almost thinking about maybe it's time for me to move because it's noisy. It's noisy at night. Final question for me. There's a group of people who come around monthly, and bye, Joanne. It's good to see you. Oh, thank you very much for that. There's a group of people who come around in little SUVs once a month. I think it's ESRI, and they're testing. They're testing for something related to the coal tar that was beneath our houses a few years ago. So if you know, Tim, I'd like to know, where can you find the results of their tests?
Good question. I don't know for sure, but I know that all of that testing is monitored by the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation. So you might start with their closest office, I think, is in Cortland.
Okay.
Maybe I can just Google it real quick and see if I can find it for you.
Yes, please. They always act like I'm bothering them when I ask them questions. But they're right outside my house once a month, and I'd really like to know what's the results of all their tests. Okay, Joanne just posted something for us.
Region 7. I can't say that I see any of that testing result doesn't come back to the city, but you could try to get in contact with the Cortland office of the DEC.
Okay.
And see if you can find them there. And their general number is 607 753 3095. And I think you could just say you're an interested resident and you know there's a coal tar monitoring program in your neighborhood, and yet you see it would probably be either the state or NYSEG's contractors collecting that data, but that would all have to get reported back to the DEC. And you could ask them if you could talk to someone about those results or how the DEC interprets that.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure, yeah.
All righty, well, I will draw this to an end, but thank you so much, Tim. Really interesting, informative session, and I'm glad that we had a nice crew to show up. So.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you all. And certainly, if you know, I am busy, but I try to make time for questions. So if you have a follow-up thing, you can ask Zach. He can get in touch with me, phone or email. Although I get a lot of email, I kind of like talking on the phone more than email these days. So, but more than happy to talk to you if you have follow-up questions or if there's other things with the group.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thanks.
That was
Thank
nice.
you. Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
Take care.
everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.